Welcome everyone to Shaper Sessions. My name's Jake,
And I'm Russ.
and want to welcome all of our longtime sessioneers,
Sessionistas.
sessionistas, however you want to call, all of our longtime watchers. And I also want to put out a special welcome to anyone that is new, or you've just heard about Origin, and you probably are here because of our spring deal.
The spring deal.
Our spring deal, which is a very exciting time. Want to tell us a little bit about Spring Deal?
Yeah, I could tell us about the spring deal. So if you received an email about the spring deal and you're here, or if you haven't heard about it, here's what's up. You can save over $400 today when you order Shaper, Origin, and Workstation together. What's included in that? Project plans, which we're going to talk about today, a free Sys1 toolbox with customizable foam insert. I think, Jake, you've got one of those behind the set here. Beautiful. Yeah, let's see what that looks like when you customize that.
This is just one option.
Perfect.
You get a nice blank canvas to make it exactly how you want it for whatever tool selection that you want it to be for.
Yeah, this one's our buddy Sam's, and he's very particular about his organization. We love it. What else do you get? You get 2 free training classes with yours truly, Jake. He'll teach you everything that you need to know to get you started with Origin. We're going to try to teach you a lot of what you need to know to get started with Origin, but Jake's really going to cover everything from start to finish. Bundle discount, like I mentioned. That's all of it. But specifically, why are we here today, Jake?
Today, that project that we were talking about, that part that comes with the deal, is a new premium project that we just released from our friend Philip Morley. It is the T-Rack project, and it is wonderful.
It is tasty.
It is very, very tasty. We've both built it a couple times now, and it's been a really wonderful experience, and we're very happy to now share it with the world and
Yeah.
see it in people's homes.
And why do we do these premium projects? For a couple reasons. They're a great way to bring in other creators who we know and love and have worked with in other capacities and bring them a little bit more into the Shaper fold, help them create a great project for you all, just that is a beautiful object. But on top of that, we really try to dive step by step into really detailed instructions that help you succeed even if you've never touched this tool before, even if you're intimidated, or if you're an advanced user, teach you some things that you may not have known. Dive really into the granular details to help you make an awesome project and level up your skills. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, being kind of a one-of-a-kind tool in a way, like there's nothing else on the market, it's really important to us to really share as much knowledge as we can, and that's why we do this. That's why we do Shaper Sessions, and that's why we create premium projects to really help that step-by-step process to get to become an experienced user.
Yeah, cool. So what are we going to do today? We got a couple things that we want to get across to you by the end of the show. Number one, for new people, what is Shaper Origin? What is this crazy tool that we're looking at here? So we're going to show that to you by cutting some mortise and tenon joinery, start to finish. A joint that we've covered pretty regularly on Shaper Sessions. I would say you could go back and get some mortise and tenon details on a couple of different projects that we've done, but we're going to do it in the context of this T-Rack today. And then for anybody who thinks, oh, well, I've cut a million mortise and tenons before, that's old hat. Well, we've got some really great tips for you from the build video that we shot with Phil on location at his shop in Wimberley, Texas. And we've got a couple little clips that we're going to show you today. That video is also included with the project when you buy it. I think even if you don't buy it, it's up on YouTube. Anybody should watch this video. It's incredible. 25 minutes of like really in-depth knowledge. Finishing, wedged mortise and tenons. I could go on and on. I'm rambling. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do today. And while we're presenting, what do we want everybody to be doing in the comments?
Yes. All right. So in the comments, this is your opportunity to ask us any questions. We will go through a live Q&A at the very end. We'll answer all your questions. We will do some giveaways, some really cool giveaways. So at the bottom of your page, you should see a question.
Yep.
A poll question. Answer that to put your hat in the ring, your name on the wheel rather, so that you can get a chance to win a couple of cool prizes at the end of the session.
Let's not even bury the lead on that one. What
Oh,
are we
yeah.
giving away today? For people who are watching this on demand later, this is what you get when you watch a live session. Giveaways at the end of the show, live Q&A.
Yep.
We cut that for YouTube, so please join us every other Thursday for the live show. But what are we giving away today? We've got a premium all-access pass to premium projects, so one lucky winner is going to get free premium projects, every single one of them. I think there's 8 or 9 now, something like that. We've got a hat from Phil Morley. Usually we give away a Shaper hat, but this is Phil's project, and we love Phil. So
He's got really cool hats.
He's got really cool hats. If he didn't have cool hats, we might not be giving one away, but he's got cool hats. So we're going to give you a Phil Morley hat. And then we also want to rep the Shaper brand as well. So we got a swag pack, the classic swag pack.
Classic swag pack, which comes with the shop banner,
Shaper shop banner,
our hat, and some stickers. In addition, everyone's a winner that showed up today because everyone is getting 50% off of this project.
Yes.
With the discount code that will be posted in the comments below on the side, wherever they show up.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for that.
Ted will set you up with that one. And that, again, that's what you get for watching Shaper Sessions live. If you're watching this on demand and you hear 50% off a project, sorry, it's not for you. Join us when we launch the next premium project, and maybe we'll do another discount code.
That's a 48-hour window to use that discount code. So between now and the end of the day on Saturday, you'll get 50% off of the T-Rack.
Yeah. So speaking of the T-Rack, can we just appreciate this once again and maybe pull it down and look at a couple of the specific features that I just love about it? I'm going to hand this off because Jake's got the close-up cam today.
All right.
Jake's in the hot seat.
Dun, 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 dun.
Jake, what's your top favorite detail on the T-Rack?
The wedge tenons. They're just beautiful. So like the whole process of cutting these tenons, cutting them a little bit deeper so that they protrude, and then driving those wedges in there, I think gives you a lot of opportunity to play with contrasting woods. This one's out of cherry with maple splines. We also did one in walnut with maple splines. I'd say I like so much about it.
I'll share mine. My favorite detail is the thumbnail profile.
Yeah.
I really love that subtle curve over the top and across the bottom and across the front face of all the shelves as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're going to show you today is a simple trick for guiding yourself if you haven't worked with hand tools very much, which I, coming from a CNC background, have hardly worked with hand tools at all. Jake's a hand tool pro. But I love this little guide feature that we included in this premium project. You cut it with Origin, and it tells you when you're working with a hand plane, how far is too far? Where exactly should that curve be? And what's the exact, precise, correct arc for maximum tastefulness? I like that. And then, of course, we had to add a cleat on the back because we add a cleat to everything.
Yeah, that makes it nice. But I will say my second favorite thing is the brass elements. You have the brass mug holder down here, the brass rods across the front. But this is such a tricky little feature right here. These are just little brass caps that cover your screws. So this whole back panel actually comes off, and that's how you mount it to your wall. It uses a tongue and groove to sit onto your wall nicely, and then you cover your screws with a very tasteful little brass cap.
Tasteful.
I love it.
Yeah, count how many times we say tasteful during the show. That's what we should do for a giveaway, is whoever gets the closest guess to the number of times we say tasteful in reference to this T-Rack should get something. We'll figure it out.
You know, Phil's a tasteful guy. He makes really, really beautiful furniture. If any of you haven't seen his work, I implore you to go forth and look at it. We have a few things to show you today.
Yeah, I mean, heck. Let's show it to him now.
Let's do it right now.
Goose, I sent you the website earlier. We got Goose working the switchboard today, as usual. Goose, can we pull up Phil's website? This is some of the work that comes out of the Philip Morley workshop. And it's just bonkers.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it. Bonkers and tasteful. We got chairs, we've got cabinetry, we've got tables. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the rocking chair.
The classic Morley rocker.
And aside from this T-Rack, also, I know Phil sells instructions and classes for a lot of other projects. So if you're interested in making a Morley rocker yourself, if you don't want to buy one, which you should, I hope somebody who's watching this buys a piece from Phil. But if you want to make one, also hit him up. Very friendly guy. I'm sure that he could figure out some way to teach this to somebody.
Very good teacher too. He teaches a class, or he's taught a class a couple of times at the Mark Adams School for Woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's where he teaches his rocking chair class. So even in the instructional video that we put together with him, he's just a natural born teacher. He's got a real good cadence, and he's easy to learn from. So we're excited to have the opportunity to work with him.
Yeah. If this gloss over his website isn't enough to pump him up, he's also a founder of the Austin School of Woodworking. Yeah, just a great, humble guy who loves sharing his passion and skills. And he's got kids. How cute is that?
That's adorable.
That's the classic Morley lounge chair. I think he sells patterns for that one as well. So, beautiful. Phil Morley. We love it. What do you say we get set up to cut this project?
Let's cut it.
This is jumping into it a little bit earlier than we usually do on this show, but we really just want to show you all how Origin works today. And then after we've cut this tenon, we've got a couple videos, like I mentioned earlier, from Phil, and we'll dive into those and show some more details. But the first step, the heart of this project, I would say, really are the wedged tenons. They're what pulls it all together.
Literally.
So I cut most of this project yesterday. You can see over here we've got the sides set up, a couple of shelves already made. We got a couple parts over here. We've got the brackets, and I've got one shelf left. We're going to set this up in Workstation. We're going to set it up vertically according to the ShaperHub Premium Project instructions. Phil sets it up differently in his video. There are a couple different ways that you could even set this up. And actually, Jake, why don't we talk about that? Setting up to cut tenons. The way that I do it is I mark on my wood all the faces that have been jointed. So if you ever pick up a Russ project and you see a circle on it, that's the flat face that I've jointed first. And then the second face that I joint gets this little curly cue that points to the circle side. And I don't know where I picked this up, but it served me well. And then every other dimension that I bring to dimension gets an X. So this X is the planed face, and this X is the table saw dimension.
Nice.
So not only does that tell me what work I've done on all my different faces, that gives me a really easy way to keep track of what faces I can use as my reference faces, which is important for CNC, because for CNC you want to make sure that the features that you build, NC stands for numerically controlled. You want to make sure that those features that you build are an exact number or distance away from some reference feature. So for all these shelves, I've used both of my jointed surfaces, the circle and the squiggly line, as reference faces in Workstation. And what I'm going to do is set them up this way so that this face is against the front clamping face of Workstation. This other jointed edge is up against my vertical reference. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to cut the other tenon. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to rotate and flip a line off the left vertical, or I should say right. I got that totally backwards. Starting with the left, moving to the right. This is also backwards in the video. This is very confusing, actually, now that I'm talking about this live. But I'm going to flip it, let's just say, to the other side and use the same reference face on my workpiece to cut the other tenon. And Jake, this is a pop quiz. Do you know why I might want to do that? Do you know why I might want to make sure that I use my same reference faces from here to cut both tenons?
So that everything lines up.
Hell yeah.
You want to make sure that you're referencing, because everything's coming from the back. You want to make sure that nothing is askew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
And if I were not confident about the dimensions off of the table saw or planer.
True.
If I were completely confident that my dimensions were spot on to the thousandth of an inch off of the table saw or off of the planer. That's funny, Jake. Yeah, I know. To see Jake laughing over here like that's a joke. I come from a metalworking background, so I get a little hung up on the thousandths of an inch sometimes.
It's okay, as do all of us here, because Origin allows that to be a capability.
Yeah, I know.
You start thinking in thousandths of an inch once you start using it in Origin.
Yeah, it's almost a bit much, but I love the precision. I'm addicted. If I were very confident that my workpiece were to exact thickness and exact width, I could clamp it up any old way that I want, and that tenon would always be centered. but since I'm not 100% there, I am actually pretty much 95% of the way there for this one, because you know, I'm picky like that. But if I were not 100% of the way there on a given project, I would make sure to just use the same reference faces for right side tenon, left side tenon.
Cool.
So we're going to set up one first. Yeah.
While you do that, for those of you that haven't seen this thing that he's clamping it into, that's Workstation. That is the go-to fixturing station for anything Origin related, whether it be on edge joinery like he's doing here, or whether it be small projects that you want to use an adjustable height shelf for that has a spoil board. So of course you can use the shaper tape to create your workspace like I have set up over here, or you can go to the workstation and do everything from box joints to mortise and tenons to whatever gets you going, whatever you need to do.
The possibilities are infinite.
Yeah.
So I've got this piece set up. Like I said, I've got one reference face against this front clamping surface of Workstation, and the other reference face you can't see, but it's over here against this vertical alignment guide. For anyone who's just getting the intro to Origin, we'll go through the whole scanning and gridding and Z-touch, all that process. What I need to do first is, to scan in my workspace so that Origin knows what it's looking at, because it uses this computer vision to find its way around. Yeah? So I'm going to go here into scan. I've already scanned this workspace once, but for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to create a new scan. And as long as I can see the tape, I'm just going to go ahead and start scan here. And as I scan, I like to go forward and back, making sure that I've got a lot of overlap, pointing Origin forward, and then you can see I'm getting a nice good picture of my workpiece right there. Click finish, and it's going to compile all those into a workspace.
I'm going to pause you real quick, because we're missing one key feature of this.
The spoil board.
The spoil board.
Yes. I go...
Unless you want to cut into aluminum.
No. Oh, wow, Jake. That's a major save.
But
right
also
there.
a fantastic opportunity to talk about features.
Yes.
So Workstation has an adjustable height clamping face. So whether you're doing short tenons, long tenons, you have two different dimensions of spoil board that go into the top, so you can actually back this up behind your piece. Helps with tear out, gives you a safe area to cut into behind your piece. And of course, you have the top level, which is useful for things like when you're using the shelf, and you don't need to worry about cutting into the backside.
Man, good thing there's two of us. So I'm going to pop this spoil board right in here. There we go. That is absolutely essential for cutting a tenon. And unclamp, move this board up to re-reference its Z height against this drawbar right here.
And you haven't created your grid yet, so
yeah,
no harm done.
No harm
Scan's
done.
already in.
Yep. Scan's in. Now what I am going to do is make sure that the spoil board is nice and snug here. We got a little bit of wiggle room there, so I'm just going to use these cams and snug that up a little bit. Perfect. Okay. We've still got the same scan. Nothing's moved, so the scan is still valid. I am going to go in here now and create a grid. I want to do a new grid. Gridding is the way that we link the physical world to the digital world. I'm using physical probe points on my workpiece to link that to the scanned-in workspace. And the way that I'm going to do that is by actually physically touching my workpiece with a 1/4-inch dowel, or in this case I like to use the engraving cutter, flipped upside down, the engraving cutter that comes stock with Origin. So the first step here, if we go back to the Origin cam, is to set your depth. I'm going to lower that all the way. I know all the way is about right for working with Workstation. Set the depth. I like to go through these features as a checklist top to bottom. We already did the depth, but you can change that as you go if you need. I know that I have a 1/4-inch dowel in here. Having my grid spacing at a 1/2 inch is okay. We're working in imperial for this project, but it's available in both imperial and metric. And I want my workspace origin point to be this corner right here. We'll call it the northwest corner of my workpiece. And to get the cutter in there, I do have to remove the spoil board just so I can sneak in there and probe. But you can see now I can butt that cutter right up against the workpiece. Probe 1, probe 2, probe 3, and that was X, X, Y. And now I've got an origin point right where I want it, 0, 0. Now what I'll do is import the design, and one of the beautiful things about these premium projects is that they come with all of the SVGs, which are the file type that we use with Origin, pre-programmed, pre-made, so you don't have to mess around with creating all the, I think there's 6 or 7 digital files for this project. They're ready to go for you right off the bat. We know that creating digital templates can be a big hurdle for first-time Origin users, so we want to get that hurdle out of the way, and then when you're ready to learn that, you can dive in. We've got a couple of great Shaper sessions on the topic using Illustrator or using Fusion 360 or using our latest Shaper-built design software, Shaper Labs. So you can go back and watch those.
Yep.
I'm going to pull in this shelf tenon inch file right here. It's got the custom anchor, and I'm going to drop that custom anchor right at 0, 0. And you can see how these blue guidelines, which are green when I scroll over them, but the blue guidelines line up perfectly with my workpiece, so that's how you know that it's in the right spot. And then we've got this curve up front. That curve is at the front of my shelf, the part that I've marked front by putting that little curl on it, so that's right in the right spot. Next step is to get set up to cut. We've got this engraving cutter in here. I'm going to swap for a 1/4 incher.
Safety glasses on.
Yeah, safety first. Where'd you get those, Jake? Those are good looking.
I love these glasses. They're called Stoggles.
Okay, nice. I think I've seen an ad for those on Instagram.
Yeah.
With the hair and the goggles, you can't go wrong. I think it's clear that Jake is winning the vote for best looking.
They don't fog up with a mask. It's amazing.
Host. Really? Is that true?
Yeah. So if you're doing a ton of sanding,
that.
you got your mask on, you got these on. No fog.
Do you have a 1/4 inch cutter over there?
Yeah. Which one would you like?
The sharpest one.
That's there.
Okay, perfect. Love it.
I have an array over here.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to cut these tenons to 3/4 of an inch deep. The standard stock cutter with Origin has a 3/4 inch cutting length. That's the maximum depth that you can cut without running into a non-cutting area of the bit. Yep. So this is perfect. And this is why we go through all of these projects. We've built probably 4 of these by now.
Yes.
Just to make sure that all the instructions are perfectly finely tuned.
For those of you that are new, Origin also comes with an 1/8 inch bit and a 60-degree engraving cutter. So that's a V-shaped bit for doing any fine engraving.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. We got the 1/4 inch cutter in. I'm going to go over here to cut. Change my bit size to match the cutter that I've got in there. Z-touch so that Origin knows where the end of my cutter is. There we go. And I can come over here, get ready to program my cut settings. Before we dive into cut settings, I think it's an appropriate time to just re-welcome everyone. I think we've been talking for 15 or 20 minutes now, so we just want to say hey. People usually tune in. Sometimes, you know, life gets in the way. 5-10 minutes late. So what are we doing here, Jake?
Today we're talking about our new premium project, the T-Rack from Philip Morley, and also hyping up our spring deal that just started.
Nice. Spring deal. That's shapertools.com/spring deal. Save over $400. And we're about to cut a tenon. So I have got the diameter set here. I have Z-touched. I am in the pocket. If we can go to the Origin cam here, I'm in the pocket. This pocket is going to clear away all the material outside of the tenon. And I'm going to cut this in 3 1/4 inch passes. So I'm going to start at a 1/4 inch. I'm going to go down to a 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to go down to 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to switch from the pocketing cut to this outside cut and clean out the outside of the tenon to bring it right up to dimension. Cool?
Let it rip.
All right.
I am going to sit here, narrate. So, for the most part, when you're using Origin, it gives you a determined cut path. And the biggest reason for that is it keeps you from climb cutting. The only time that Origin kind of acts like a normal router is when you're in this mode, which is pocket mode. It allows you to travel in any direction because the main goal is just to hog out that material inside the pocket space. So it's up to you to keep yourself from climb cutting. But yes, I'm going to step away so you all can hear me a little bit better. And he's just going to do this in a couple of depth passes. General rule of thumb that we like to follow here is whatever the dimension or the diameter of your cutter is should be the depth per pass. So 1/4 inch cutter, 1/4 inch depth passes on your way down. Now another neat feature on pockets is there is a little bit of a built-in offset surrounding the tenon. That kind of, it's about a half of your, whatever your bit diameter is, and that is designed to keep you from accidentally bumping into your final design line that you really care about. So after he finishes his pocket, he's going to come back in and cut the actual tenon to its final shape. You'll notice too, as you start getting more and more experience with Origin, cutting different grain directions feel dramatically different. So if I'm cutting into the side of a board, I'm going to feel kind of the resistance of the grain, versus if you're cutting into end grain, like Russ is doing here, it feels a lot different because that grain is all faced up vertically, and just the way that the cutters work against it cuts beautifully, really smoothly, and depending on the hardwood, depending on the material, you can usually cruise through it pretty quickly.
Alright, am I back on, Goose? We got Jake coming back from off screen. Sorry guys, we know this gets a little loud. So, just going to take a quick break here. Let's look at my tenon. Goose, can you go to the workstation cam? Yeah, there we go. I'm not going to take it out yet because I have one more thing to cut, which is that shaping guide. And what that is, again, if we look back at this file and I select this guide, it's a guide now because it's optional. Guides are paths that aren't natively cut by Origin, but I can change this to an outside cut, and it's going to, if I change this to just 1/100th of an inch deeper, it's going to give me a very, very shallow guide line that I can use to shape that nice curved profile of the front of these shelves with something like a hand plane or a spoke shave, or even just sandpaper if you're not trying to get fancy with it. So let's cut this. One more quick little cut.
Go. I'm going to go wander. I think he's going just like 0.01 inches deeper than he already was. Just enough to make a mark.
Okay, that's it. I'm going to unclamp all this and show you all nice and close, because it's a very subtle feature. So if we go back to the workstation cam, how's that? It's pretty high contrast. How about the Origin cam? Yeah, can you see that? There we go. So you've got that nice little guideline right there that lets you take off just enough material from the front of the shelf. It also happens to help guide me in remembering which side is the front of the shelf and which side's the top and bottom and all that when I refixture this on the other side of workstation to make sure that my other tenon is perfectly aligned and using those same reference faces. So I'm going to get that set up.
Love it.
What should I don't know. Got any questions? Got any thoughts on this? I mean, we've both made like several of these already, so it seems like old hat, but There's plenty of new stuff going on in here also.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of gatyas that I learned at least that we kind of talked through in the instructions as well. But we'll point out here is and cutting those wedges themselves and the slots for the wedges in the end of the tenon is actually a bandsaw job. So you go over the bandsaw, you can make a real simple jig to cut those wedges out of whatever wood that you decide.
Yeah.
And then use that. I mean, I at least use that same kerf of my bandsaw to cut the groove for them, because the wedges, they are structural, but we're not going crazy on these things because we don't want to split the wood. So they're really aesthetic, but they also have a little bit of a structure.
You know what we could do? Because I'm going to have to rescan this and regrid it and set it all up for the other side, which the people have already seen once before. While I do that, what if we show off a clip from Phil's build video about cutting those wedged tenon kerfs and wedges? Goose, can you pull that up?
Throw a curveball at you, Goose.
Let's see if he's got it. I think it says 1 second. I'm going to start getting this set up anyway, just in case.
There you go.
Split the tenon on the bandsaw, so just cut in a little cut.
There we go.
There it is.
When this goes down in there, the wedge is actually parallel to the grain, which is really the wrong way. You want it perpendicular to the grain. So what could happen is if I really smash the heck out of that wedge, especially up around here, it's going to wedge open, it's going to split this and potentially down here too. So keep in mind what this is. It's a tea rack. It's just going to hold tea or coffee. And so this is really more decorative. If there's a little bit of a gap in the width, it's going to help us, but you don't want to drive home too hard on this. The simple approach, how I do it in my shop, is basically, I mean, this is a really long piece, but I'm going to take a chunk. I'm going to do walnut. I'm going to take a chunk of this. It has to be around 12, 13 inches, because that's what it takes to go through my planer. I'm going to take this piece. I'm going to join it, probably resaw it to 5 3/4 say, and then I'm going to like plane it down until it fits perfect, as if it's a tenon, until it fits perfect within this mortise. Once that's done, I'll determine the length of my tenon. So I have this piece that fits perfectly in there, and then I'll just chop maybe 1.5 inch pieces out of that. And I'll make a very simple jig with a piece of plywood on the bandsaw that will cut those wedges. So this is how this works. It's really not fancy at all. We're gonna come like so, cut through, make one cut, rotate, make another cut. Once this block starts getting too close, at a certain point, I'm just not gonna bother getting any more. But then I'll also use my pencil just to hold that in so my fingers are not getting anywhere close to that blade. It's just very efficient to get very consistent wedges. Now we need...
I love that.
Love it.
I love that
Super
safety first approach with the pencil. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I never thought about using my pencil.
I'm only halfway done with this, by the way, so we do have time for another video. What do you think about watching the thumbnail profile shaping?
Oh,
so we got a video of that from Phil as well,
So
while I grid this up.
And yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Goose, bringing up the hand shaping segment of that video.
Then my piece is dragging over. I get that done first. So that line just kind of giving me a visual to, you know, where to cut down to. I'm going to use a longer plane. You could do this with a block plane and you'll probably be fine. But the idea is that the smaller the plane is, it can ride, you can get off a little bit, right? Where this guy is going to stay on there nice and flat, and I can work this across. So I'm going to set up for a coarser cut and then make it finer as I get closer to the desired shape. I'm going to back off on that cut now, make a finer cut. And any profile, it's basically facets. All I'm doing is I'm making these facets and I'm trying to make them as small as I can, and then the sanding is going to really blend that in. So you can kind of see that shape. It's pretty much what I'm looking for. So now it's time to sand. So I'm going to start with 120 and work my way up through the grits. It's not a bad idea to pencil. I started up higher, and as I'm going sanding this, I started rotating it until I saw that line just disappearing. Once I saw that, I stopped because I know I'm at that hard line. I don't want to go any further than that. I don't particularly do the pencil thing every time. I can kind of trust my eye, but it's a good visual, especially if you're not used to doing this type of work. So this is piece 220 and a little piece of cardboard, a little notepad from like the back of a notepad, it's a nice thickness. It gives it just a little bit of rigidity, and then I'm going to use this and kind of to form it, and that's going to really blend any of those facets. And you can tell by just wiping off the dust, if there's some like cloudiness, that means you haven't sanded it enough, so you need to like go back. Okay, so the last thing I'm doing is this flex paper. So 320, I like to cut it up into little squares, and this stuff just works really nice to finish it out. Okay, so here's the finished result I was looking for. This looks really nice, crisp, and you can tell it's been sanded very well. So now I'm gonna...
Beautiful.
Love it.
What a cliffhanger. What's he gonna do next?
That was finished. Oh, he's gonna glue it up.
Yeah, that was like 4 minutes of tips, and so you can imagine with the density of that information, like a 25-minute video, you're gonna learn a lot.
It's a stellar video.
We've got one more clip to show later, but also after this show, everybody should, before you go to bed, watch that video. It's just beautiful.
It will inspire you.
It's the last thing that you should do today. It's a great way to close out a day, or a great way to wake up tomorrow. So I'm all set here. I'm ready to cut this next pocket. What I did was I set up my workpiece on the other side of workstation to align that other tenon with my reference faces. I did not scan again. I just simply regridded. I'm comfortable working without seeing exactly that my workpiece is under there. The domino scan is still equally as valid, and as long as I regrid and connect that scan to a physical workpiece, then I'm totally comfortable with that. I set up my 1/4-inch cutter again, and I Z-touched, which is the last important thing that you should do when you're swapping bits. So I'm ready to cut.
Right on.
Cool.
Let's do it. Back at it again with the pocket. Yeah, it's cool to see Philip Morley talk about sanding, and he goes on to say a lot of people dread sanding, but it's really one of the most enjoyable. It can be one of the most enjoyable parts of any project. Sanding, shaping, and finishing really it's that final level of love that brings a piece together. One more thing to note, if you are joining us for one of the first times, you may notice we're cutting the tenons first very intentionally. Typically, in woodworking, you would cut a mortise first and then adjust your tenon to fit. In the origin world, it's totally different. Cut your tenon first. You have that nice solid cut to a 0-inch offset. Then you move over to your mortise, and as you cut your mortise, you can test fit and adjust your offset on origin to be a couple of thousandths of an inch different to get that fit that you're looking for, whether it be a total friction fit or if you want to leave a little bit of room so it's easier to come apart. It's up to you. Handy in joinery, in inlays, whatever it is that requires a true precision fit. It's at the tips of your fingertips. Alright, I'm so far away I can't actually see where he's at in the cut. But there we go. Now he's cutting this to a 0-inch offset, so that really means that he's cutting that tenon to the true size of the tenon. And we'll go over this when we cut one of the last mortises, but if we cut both the mortise and the tenon at 0 inch, at a 0 inch offset, it's going to be too tight, or it's not going to fit at all because they're the exact same size.
We need to get the air hose over here so I can blow off after all these tenons. There's nothing better than going home covered in sawdust. I love how it smells. All right, there we go. That's a part right there. Beautiful. Tenon, tenon. We got our guide on this side. We got our guide on this side, so we didn't get that mixed up. Perfect. That's what we got.
Cool. It's nice to have the guide on both sides because it all depends on your grain orientation. So when you're putting it in a vise and you're going at it with a bench plane or something, or a jack plane, you want to be able to orient it in the way that your grain is going to give you a nice result. So
yeah, exactly. So we're not going to shape those today. You saw how Phil shapes his. The last thing that we do have to cut today is a mortise, though, in the side. If we go over to look at this bench, is our top cam working today? It might not show that. Oh,
no.
It's the top cam and workstation. We got too many setups today.
That's
so
right.
we got a couple different things going on. Jake, could you walk us through? This is a setup that you actually devised the
Yes.
first time we made this project.
And there's different ways to do it. Phil does it with using stacked plywood to be the exact same thickness of his material, which is totally okay. That's what we call making a tape board. An important note, your shaper tape should always be on the same plane as the material you're cutting. One, it makes for a smoother surface for Origin to ride on, and it just makes everything happy for the optic system. So this is what we've done here. We've taken all of our parts. We've used double-sided tape to hold them down to our spoil board, and we're actually using the pieces as a scan board. So we can, and they're all like spaced out enough to where the Origin always has a footing, and I can cut the sidings nice and cleanly.
What's so nice about this is all of these pieces came out of the planer at exactly the same time.
Exactly.
So we know that they're the right thickness. You don't have to mess with adding or subtracting little bits of plywood or little spacers to get it just right. It's already right, and it's already pieces that you already need for the project anyway. So it's like a no scrap, no waste way of getting that nice, even work surface.
Yeah. A couple notes on the material itself. You can either cut your sides to the final dimension or to their final width, or you can leave them a little bit long. If you decide to cut it to your final width, we have a little trick for you that I want to show you. If I can grab your Origin here.
Give you the reins.
Thank you. Look at that. If you hop over to my screen real quick, Goose. So you just handed me the Origin. It sees this new workspace, which I had already scanned earlier today. If I just say accept workspace, boom, I'm back in this workspace. So it hasn't forgot what I've done. I have cut all the mortises except for this last one down here. But what I want to talk about is a little bit of potential grain tear out, a little bit of blowout right here, because we only need to cut these top and bottom elements. So given that this is cut to its final dimension, you're just cutting here to here and here to here for that decorative detail on the bottom. So what I recommend is when you're cutting this, instead of just going for it.
Can we go to the Origin cam, Goose?
Ah, sorry. Thank you. Instead of just going for it down here and making your first cut, come over to the end of it, right here, right where it makes that turn, plunge to full depth, and retract. That's going to kind of sever that edge bit of grain and keep it from blowing out when you make your passes. From there, you can actually start your cut passes with an offset and all those fun things.
Yep, beautiful tip. And there's that tip. Again, many more in the video. What we did here was we cut to full depth with Origin, but I know what Phil does when he does big batches of parts is cut just maybe the first 1/4 inch and then take that to the bandsaw, saw it off, and use Origin's path as a pattern, a built-in pattern for a router table.
Yeah, really cool. All right, I'm going to do this in 4 passes. Well, maybe 5, depends. I might want to fine-tune what my fit is. So I'm going to start off with a 1/4 inch depth, and a 0.02 offset. That gives me that little bit of a buffer, just so that as I'm hogging through my material, I know I'm not going to actually accidentally bump the inside of my line.
Cool. I'm going to step away for a little bit so we don't pick up too much vacuum noise.
All right, here we go.
All right, here we go. Jake's just getting set for this mortise. Looks like he might have just done a quick Z-touch there. And as you watch Jake cut this mortise, you might notice the thing that makes Origin special is the dot that's floating around in the circle with the crosshairs. For people who are just joining us, for people who maybe got the spring promo, spring deal email and ended up watching this Shaper session to learn about Origin, what that is Shaper Origin's spindle, which is represented by that little dot, compensating in real time for any error that Jake introduces to the system. It basically compensates the difference between where Origin knows that it is and where Origin knows that it should be. And that's how we combine robotics with humanity, basically, to make perfect cuts. We make your cuts better, is the easiest way to describe it. It takes the same motions as using a handheld plunge router, but adds that autocorrect in real time to make your lines perfectly straight, make them tunable by the thousandth of an inch, which is how we're going to get this really beautiful mortise and tenon fit by the end of the show. So that's the Origin story right there. We can see Jake's a couple passes in now to the mortise. Even done, perhaps. Okay, looks like I got to get back in here.
I've cut to 0. I just want to take the opportunity to talk about that difference between cutting it to a 0-inch offset and then taking that negative couple thou off. So 0-inch offset, true to size, 0-inch offset, true to size. It is, you can see it, it's just lining up line to line, but it's not going to fit. I mean, maybe if it was a softwood and I had a mallet, it would come together. But it's cherry, and Russ wants to give this away at some point to a family member. So I'm not going to bash into it with a mallet.
We might not need the mallet today. This might be the first Shaper session that we don't need to bust out the mallet for. So
I really enjoy the mallet, though.
We do love the squeaky fit, but we're going to go on the looser side of the squeaky fit today.
Do you remember what you did your other tenon or mortises at?
I think minus 0.003. So
Beautiful.
3/1000ths of an inch on either side of that mortise leaves an extra 6/1000ths total extra room.
Exactly. So that's just opening that mortise up just by a 3 thou on either side. So a total of 6 thou. And it's always best to start small and increase as you go. Once you kind of find out what that fit is going to be, or what that fit that you're looking for is, whether it be 3 thou or 5 thou, you're ready to go for the rest of the mortises. So in this case, we'll do 3 thou, negative
0.003. And negative because we're trying to remove more material. Good rule of thumb.
You can't even see it because it's so small, but it just made my cut line a little bit bigger.
Perfect.
All right.
Get at it. And while Jake's cutting this mortise, I just want to remind you all that we're coming close to the end of the show here. If you're watching on demand, the end of the show, that is. But if you're tuning in live, we're going to keep going with Q&A, some giveaways. And if you have any questions, please make sure to get them in the comments so that Ted, our guy in the comments, can send them to Jake and I. There we go.
Boom.
Nice.
Love it.
And that's a little bit proud because we're still on the spoil board, and once that's pulled off the spoil board, that tenon will go all the way through. The reason that the tenon is proud, if you watch Phil Morley's build video, you want to leave a little bit of extra length on the outside, especially for a wedged tenon, so that you can go back at the end and flush trim it with a flush trim saw.
Yep.
So we got 1/8 of an inch extra on those.
This is also, once you get into the glue up territory, you want to make sure that you remember what side your reference edge is, because you want to be consistent. I want my reference edge to be at the back here, so that the back.
Oh, I've made the reference edge the front. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, actually.
Because the front has a little bit of a
Because the front has the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Either
is,
way,
just
as long
reference
as you
base.
stick with what you did,
I stuck with it the whole way.
then that's all that really matters.
There we go.
Okay, we're ready to pry this up.
Okay, got the pry bar right here. I'll swap you.
Thank you.
We love a good putty knife or a little pry bar just for releasing that double stick tape, just giving it a little extra persuasion. It's pressure sensitive, so usually after you've run over it with Origin, it wants to stick a little bit harder than it did in the first place. But it's the perfect stuff for, we call it catch and release work holding. We don't call it that, I just made it up, but I think it's a great term. You know, it holds when you want it to, and it lets go when you're done.
Just be really careful where you're prying on it. Notice how I'm prying underneath the tenon, because that's going to be hidden, and so any damage that my pry bar does will not show.
Careful of your show surfaces, exactly.
I have munched a couple of surfaces because of just trying to get it off, not thinking about it, and I always regret it.
All right, that one's got a little piece on it, but it's mostly set. Work on this one.
And we're not going to do the brass necessarily right now, but
just to show the mortise and tenon fit, yeah.
Just imagine that there's brass rods in there as well. All right. Other note: there is two parts to this, or rather, they're the same thing, but you have to flip the file.
There's a right and a left,
or reflect the file, however you want to look at it. So that you get it right and left, because these holes for the brass pins or the brass rods don't go all the way through. They're captive.
Unless you choose to make them go all the way through, like our buddy Matt.
Hey.
Matt built this project, and he made those go all the way through, and he's got a nice little rounded brass end on the outside.
What is it? The mark of a good craftsperson is not that they don't make mistakes. It's how they hide
I wasn't going to tell anybody that that was a mistake, but if you make that mistake, then you can cover it up by making the ends of your brass look really pretty. Got our shaper tape coming off nice and easy here.
Boom.
That's a good fit. Beautiful.
And last one, those tongue and grooves, which you're also going to learn how to do with Origin. Both the tongue and the groove actually on Workstation are at the top and the bottom.
Yeah, really nice for box making grooves with Origin, for blind grooves in the bottom of a box.
It's fantastic.
Really, really nice, especially combined with box joints.
Yeah, if you ever made a little square notch to plug.
Oh yeah, exactly, to plug where that groove comes out or where that dado comes out of the bottom of a box.
Say no more.
Perfect. We got that inside and outside.
This is always the fun part, especially when you're gluing, making sure all your things align as it comes together.
Just getting started. There we go. Yeah, it wasn't actually shown in Phil's video, but I did catch a moment in that film where there's the sound of a brass rod popping out of the assembly as he glues it up. You can hear it clatter away. Ooh, speak of squeaky fit. There you go.
Perfect.
Nice.
Well.
Yes. Now that's a shelf right there.
Well, what you got there is a shelf. All right.
All right. I love it. It came out exactly how I wanted it to also. I was very deliberate with this project about picking the faces of my material and where they were going to go in the T-rack. I've got this nice little knot right there. I believe in showing your flaws, but putting them somewhere tasteful. So that's not
Very
awkwardly
nice.
in the middle of a tenon. It's just right there off to the side. And it's not too much. It's just a little bit. So it's good. We'll call it a beauty mark.
There you go.
Learn that one from Matt Kenny, one of our box competition judges.
Right on. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks all. We'll see you next time.
Cheers.